The story begins by introducing a painter named Lee, who lived in Bangkok with his girlfriend, Yuen. Like Lee, his girlfriend was also a painter, and both were currently struggling to achieve success in their lives. While Yuen created original paintings, Lee used his skills to mimic the works of famous artists. He was incredibly talented and intelligent, capable of creating a duplicate copy of any painting with full detailing after just one glance. However, the local dealers didn't particularly care for his work. They wouldn't even allow Lee's paintings to be part of any exhibition, dismissing him by saying his work was merely a copy of other artists that they couldn't sell in the market. Lee had to hear this every single time, yet he never lost hope and continued to paint. As Lee and Yuen's lives went on this way, Lee returned home one evening to find a man named Lokman talking to Yuen. Lokman wanted to arrange an exhibition for Yuen's paintings, but Yuen placed a condition before him. She would only agree to the exhibition if Lokman also gave Lee's paintings a spot. Hearing this, Lokman tried to reason with her, saying that if she wanted to be successful in life, she should leave Lee. He explained that everyone believed Lee only made fake paintings, so he couldn't include them in the exhibition. Consequently, Yuen flatly refused to be part of the exhibition, and Lokman left disappointed. Lee, who had been standing outside listening to their conversation, approached Yuen and urged her to accept Lokman's offer. Yuen eventually agreed and, the next day, displayed her paintings along with Lee's at the exhibition. However, she soon realized that while people loved her work, no one was paying much attention to Lee's paintings. Lee felt terrible seeing this, and to make matters worse, a man known as Painter arrived. He mocked Lee's work, asking what kind of painting it was, and remarking that it was all just a copy. Before Painter could say anything else, Yuen, infuriated by the insult to Lee, threw wine on him and told him to leave. As Painter headed to his car to leave, Lee followed him to apologize for Yuen's behavior. At this, Painter told Lee that he had done everything on purpose because he wanted to meet him privately. He explained that he hadn't come to criticize the paintings but to praise them, noting that perfectly copying an original painting is a talent in itself, and Lee's copies were better than the originals. He then took Lee to a restaurant where they talked over drinks. Painter encouraged Lee, telling him he was a brilliant artist and that he loved his method of copying, so he should never consider himself inferior. Finally, Painter offered Lee a job and departed. After that, Lee returns to the exhibition hall where his paintings were displayed. Upon arriving, he sets his own work on fire, finding a strange sense of relief in the act, as if he had finally decided that his place wasn't in original art, but in creating fakes. He calls Painter to meet and agrees to work with him. When Lee asks what kind of painting he needs to create, Painter shows him a $100 bill and explains that he doesn't need Lee's talent for fake paintings, but for counterfeit currency. Essentially, Painter wants Lee to create a perfect copy of the original note. Lee is repulsed by the idea and flatly refuses. Painter then makes a shocking revelation, telling Lee that he hasn't just started this. His family has been producing fake currency for 3 generations without ever getting caught. Tempting Lee with the lure of massive wealth, Painter leaves the offer on the table. Initially, Lee decides against it and plans to tell Yuen everything when he gets home. However, before he can say a word, he sees Yuen leaving him to go with Lokman. It turns out Yuen was furious because Lee burning his paintings at the exhibition caused her a significant loss, prompting her to walk away from him. Having relied on Yuen for so long, Lee finds himself completely alone after her departure. To escape this loneliness, he finally accepts Painter's offer. Painter explains that the US government has recently launched a new currency that is incredibly complicated. Its design features details so intricate that even the world's most sophisticated printing machines cannot copy them. However, Painter is confident that Lee can paint this new currency better than any machine. He introduces Lee to the rest of the team, Yam, a printing plate specialist, and another member, who is a color theory expert. The expert informs Painter that they will need color-shifting ink to print the dollars. Painter assigns Yam the task of procuring the ink, which he successfully manages. Even with the ink, creating the bill remains difficult because they need starch-free paper to ensure the texture is perfect. Another unique property of this paper is its reaction to a blue ink pen. The paper turns the ink yellow, a method banks use to distinguish real notes from fakes. During this time, Painter learns through a contact that the US government uses leftover starch-free paper to manufacture telephone directories. Upon hearing this, Painter buys up the directories as the paper size is perfect for printing notes. To avoid suspicion, they lie and claim their company makes books. Once they have the paper, Lee begins his work. Using his experience and paying attention to every minute detail, he designs the note piece by piece. Painter is overjoyed, but his happiness turns to concern when it comes time to fit the watermark, an incredibly difficult task. Using his ingenuity, Painter suggests they mimic the technique used by ancient Chinese painters, who used 3 layers for their work. They decide to create the currency in 3 layers and embed the watermark in the middle layer. The team loves the idea. They place the painted design in a machine, sandwiching it between 2 other papers to create a 3-layered note. Next, they need a printing press, which they manage to buy for $5,000 from a second-hand scrap market in Eastern Europe. The only thing left was the color-shifting ink. To get it, Painter and his team ambush a government truck transporting the ink. Painter orders Lee to quickly grab the ink from the vehicle. Although Lee wants no part of the violence, he is forced to do it. A security guard spots him and is about to shoot when Painter saves him. When the guard tries to shoot Painter as well, an enraged Painter guns down all the guards and blows up the vehicle. Lee is horrified by the brutality. With all the materials finally gathered, they are ready to print. Meanwhile, the police realize that high-quality counterfeit notes are flooding the market. Canadian intelligence requests Officer Wing, an expert in counterfeit currency from Hong Kong, to handle the case. Using the stolen color-shifting ink, Lee begins printing currency that looks even more real than the original. The team celebrates wildly, but Lee is despondent. He confronts Painter, asking if he plans to kill more innocent people once this batch of ink runs out. Lee declares that once this job is finished, he is leaving the team. Though angered, Painter gives him permission to go. Once the process is complete, the counterfeit currency is packed into bags and shipped to clients in different countries across the globe. Now, Painter decides to meet his oldest client, the General, to discuss the counterfeit currency business. Before the meeting, the General's expert arrives with a team member named Ching to inspect the quality of the fake bills. Just then, Lee arrives. Using his talent, he has managed to create an ink identical to the one used in original US dollars. Painter is thrilled with Lee's success and takes him along to meet the General. In reality, the General, man who responsible for taking Painter's father's life, and Painter has come to seek revenge. Knowing it wouldn't be easy to kill the General at his own base, Painter wears a suicide vest rigged with explosives, giving the remote to Lee. When the General's men realize that the true mastermind is Painter, not Lee, and point a gun at his head, Painter signals Lee to press the button. A car outside explodes, distracting everyone. A fierce gunfight breaks out. When Painter is surrounded, his man hiding in the jungle fires a rocket, blowing up the building. In the crossfire, Ching is severely burned, but Lee rescues her. Painter eventually kills the General, settling the score. Because Ching's face was completely disfigured by burns, Painter arranges for plastic surgery to give her a new face, specifically the face of Yuen. A few days later, Lee, Ching, and Painter attend Yuen's art exhibition. Lee hopes to win Yuen back, but he is devastated to find she is now in a relationship with Lokman. Painter urges Lee to fight for his love, but Lee ignores him and walks away. Meanwhile, Officer Wing poses as a fake client to trap Painter, assisted by a female officer named Ho. Wing meets 2 of Painter's men to strike a deal. However, Painter investigates Wing and discovers that Yam, one of his team members, had used a counterfeit note to buy a wall clock, which allowed Wing to track them down. Since the gang's strict rule was never to spend their own fake money, Painter kills Yam and his entire family. Unaware that his cover is blown, Wing arrives to finalize the deal. Painter commands Lee to kill Wing, but Lee is paralyzed by fear, forcing Painter to kill Wing himself. Angered, Painter takes Lee to a location where he has kidnapped Yuen and Lokman to give Lee one last chance to prove himself. He orders Lee to kill Lokman. Instead, Lee points his gun at Painter. Knowing Lee is too timid to pull the trigger, Painter kills Lokman himself. Lee tries to save Yuen as Painter's men open fire on them. Suddenly, Ching arrives and kills all of Painter's men. Lee finally overcomes his fear and kills Painter. He leaves Yuen behind and flees with Ching and the money meant for the deal, hiding out at a resort. Lee soon learns from the newspaper that the police never found Painter's body, making him fear Painter is still alive and coming for Yuen. Before he can reach her, Lee is arrested at a travel agency for using counterfeit currency. During the interrogation by Officer Ho, a terrified Lee stays silent until Yuen arrives with a lawyer to bail him out. The police agree to release him only if he provides information on Painter. Lee agrees and helps them sketch portraits of Ching and Painter. Later, while Lee and Yuen spend time at a hotel, Officer Ho spots a man outside the station who looks exactly like the painter from the sketch. When she detains him, he proves he is actually a police officer who drove Lee to the station the day of his arrest. Lee had stared at the officer's face during the ride and used his likeness to create a fake sketch of Painter. The truth finally dawns on Officer Ho. Painter does not exist. Lee is the sole mastermind of the entire operation. He used his imagination to create the character of Painter to shift the blame. In reality, Lee had killed Lokman and his family. He had crafted a story so convincing that everyone believed it. As Officer Ho rushes to the hotel, she finds that Lee has already killed the guards and escaped with Yuen. The police then discover that the woman who bailed Lee out was not the real Yuen. The real Yuen was busy painting elsewhere. The woman with Lee was actually Ching. After her face was burned, Lee had her surgically altered to look like Yuen because he was obsessed with his ex-girlfriend. Ching realized Lee didn't love her, but only the face he gave her. That's why she has originally kidnapped real Yuen and Lokman, to force Lee to choose. The gunfight at the hotel had actually been Lee's own team turning on each other. Ching had only returned to bail Lee out so she could exact her own revenge. Lee's philosophy was that if you can't have the real thing, you buy something else and make it look real, just like a fake note. Heartbroken by this, Ching leaves a note for Officer Ho with the number of the boat they are using to escape. As they reach the edge of Hong Kong's waters, Ching tells Lee she no longer wants to live as a fake Yuen. As the police surround them, Ching presses a remote, blowing up the boat and killing them both. Days later, Officer Ho visits the real Yuen. When shown Lee's photo, Yuen reveals that he was just a neighbor who lived across from her. They were never in a relationship. Lee's obsession and one-sided love drove a talented artist to become a master counterfeiter, yet he could never possess the one thing he couldn't replicate: true love. Even when he turned Ching into a copy of Yuen, the emotional connection wasn't real. And with this scene, our story comes to an end. And friends, don't forget to share your thoughts about this video in the comment section. Thanks for watching.